Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that regard, I'm always naturally curious about people doing innovative things, different things, going against the mainstream. And it's my mission to bring those guests to you to share in the conversations. Hopefully, you get motivated, inspired, maybe even educated. So, in that light, I have an entrepreneur. His name is Adam, and he's going to talk to us all about the military standpoint from operations, leadership, teams. So, Adam, welcome.
Thank you so much, Christopher. It's such a pleasure to be here. And fantastic mission that you have here. I love the idea of just being open and exploring all sorts of different things. It really exposes us to a lot of things.
Yeah. It's really I'm like I said, I'm naturally curious. I like to see what people are doing differently. How can I always innovate and improve? So tell us, you have a military background. Tell us about your background, your company, how you got started, and we'll go from there.
For sure. So I joined the military during the height of the Iraq War. I was just coming out of college. So naturally, when you finish I had a bachelor's degree in music. So naturally, get a bachelor's degree in music, join the Army. Seemed logical to me. But ended up serving 12 and a half years active duty, the vast majority of that time in Army Special Operations. So I was doing everything from jumping out of planes to working in embassies and getting in firefights. It was a crazy time. Loved every second of it. I'm super happy I did it. I'm a reservist, so I got to have the active duty time. And I jumped straight into online business. I was fascinated about online business the first time I ran a Facebook ad, and I realized I didn't need permission from anyone to do stuff. It was great. It's this wonderful freeing thing. I could just do things. It was amazing. Where I really found my niche, though, was running teams, running companies, all the behind the scenes dirty work that most visionaries and entrepreneurs don't really want to do. That's my thing. Like, I love getting my hands into all the dirty work that has to happen to make a business run, and was able to take several companies now past the 7-figure mark, just helping run their operations and tighten that ship.
Oh, nice. So you're a COO, and basically and you help, like, you're like a Sheryl Sandberg or a Emil Choi, people that really, run their day-to-day operations, which it's a very valuable skill to have. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. One question I have is, we'll just talk about ideas and, broad ideas. Why hire an operator?
Oh, it's a very good question. And I actually wrote a post about it on my LinkedIn. Operators I call us the misfits. So if you read some of the business management books, so to speak, they'll talk about the idea of a visionary and an integrator. And they're 2 very distinctly different things. And I don't say this in any way to denigrate integrators. They have their role and I love them. They're amazing at what they do. An operator is a misfit between an integrator and a visionary. We're a tactician that loves to get our hands dirty. We love to be in the weeds, making stuff happen. But there's like 30 to 40% of our brain that is entrepreneurial focused, and we can't turn it off. So we're so happy spending half our day in the weeds, and then we got to get out and start looking at the strategic vision and working with our visionary entrepreneur to create the future of that business. So an operator, it's that happy medium in between. And so that's why I love operators. They're my people. Hiring an operator will get you that perfect balance between a tactician and a visionary.
Yeah, interesting. I've never heard of the idea of an integrator. So one thing is, so you're kind of you're the liaison between, the leader and then, all the team. So what lessons did you learn from hiring and onboarding team members?
That's a good one. First lesson is a business is really a collection of systems and processes that repeat. And there are things that happen within our companies each and every day. And it's those things repeating the same way every day that make for a stable company. So often, though, we take all those systems and processes for granted. So documenting, building out systems, building out core processes, playbooks, all this stuff has to happen before you begin hiring, before you begin expanding the team. I'm not a solopreneur right now. I do have a VA, but from the day one that I started my new business, training operators, helping business owners with their operations, I started creating my templates, started creating my own SOPs. The only person following it was me. But you know how much clarity and freedom having an SOP brings to any of us? We put all of this hard work into the creative things that we have to do and the hardworking things, especially your guys. You guys are physicians. Like, you have to use your brain so much of the day. Do you really have to be thinking about things when you're doing the parts that are running the business? No, following a checklist is so much easier. It's so liberating too, because you just go right down the list and do everything. So documenting those things before you move into the hiring process is the first thing I would recommend to absolutely anyone. If you don't think you need it documented yet, nope, you do. Document it. Just get everything captured, and that puts you in the best position then to actually get into the hiring process and start growing your team out.
Yeah. Do you see any differences between online business operators and business operations in the corporate or just a physical space?
The big difference comes with our communication cadences and like how we're actually working with each other and interacting with each other. As far as systems and processes, these are all captured in the same. I use Asana. That's my project management tool. If I had an in-person office, I'd still use Asana. It's a great tool that it doesn't matter like what type of venue you're in. As far as a lot of the operators that I've spoken to, we've been across the gamut from purely remote digital nomads to in-person. I have a friend who is an operator for a dental practice, and they have like 6 different offices, and she's in charge of all of it. But she's using the very same systems that I use to manage that company.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my friends. He's also he's an entrepreneur, and he has a online business as well. And he's always telling me that he's always having trouble hiring good talent. They either leave and do their own thing, or the hires aren't as good. So how can you hire the best people?
It's a very good question. I actually have a mini training that I can make available for your audience if you like, because I put together for my following. I follow a multi-step process to picking the best hire. The first is getting full clarity on what that role is, what it all encompasses. Customer service rep is not always the same as a customer service rep. As a pure example, like, don't allow ourselves to just take someone else's template and make our job posting based off of it. Instead, do it by task and the actual task that you want someone to do. Second is, we have so many different forums to actually be posting for jobs, like whether it's Upwork or Fiverr or LinkedIn, or I don't know, there's like 6 new ones I just discovered yesterday. All these different places where we can post for jobs. It's all about selecting the right platform for the right job. So if it's more of an entry-level position, something like Upwork's more suitable. If it's a higher level position, someone you want in a manager function, something more like LinkedIn is more suitable. So picking the right platform to post that job application is absolutely critical. And just take a glance on any of them and just do job searches. You're going to see where if you see a lot of jobs posting like your own, you're in the right place. If yours sticks out, you might be in the wrong place. So that's a step 2. Step 3 is really just evaluating the person first and whether or not they're a cultural fit. In the in-person business, we can build culture a little bit more easily because we're face-to-face a lot more. We're communicating more. When you're remote, that's a little more difficult. There's ways to do it for sure, but you have to really look at the person first and less about their skills more and their attributes. But is this someone that you can actually relate with? Are you going to have that kind of relationship and that connection with when you can't always be communicating in a face-to-face manner. So I always do culture fit before we even get into trial tasks. And so it also works like a funnel. If you're familiar with sales funnels, where you like start with a lot of leads and then slowly narrow it down, that's what we're doing through this whole process. We start by putting a job post, having a ton of people respond, bring a certain number of people into a culture fit interview. Okay, about half of them actually fit our culture. Then when we narrow it down even further, we move into trial tasks. You never want to hire someone without actually seeing what they can do. So creating some trial tasks for them to actually perform. And then finally, this is all before they even get to the final interview, or actually like they're talking to their boss. All of this happens before this stage of the game. And so many of us want to skip right to that. So do all of these various steps before we move into the actual final interview and hiring decision.
Interesting. What have you found were the best places? Is it referrals, word of mouth? Is it just kind of you post it onto the job sites? What have you found that works the best?
The best source of new employees I've ever found is my own email list, to be honest. Because when you hire from an email list, you're hiring from a following that you already have. You already have the culture fit. You already are hiring people who are mission oriented. They believe in what you're doing. They've already bought into your Kool-Aid, so to speak. Like if you're a mission-based company, what better place to find mission-based people than your own following? So that if you don't have an email list, not all of us do, especially if you're not an online business. I got that. Apart from that, I've had just tremendous success with Upwork. And just a shameless plug, I was hired as a social media manager at $15 an hour on Upwork, and I became the COO. So, I mean, you can find tremendous talent on job posting sites like that.
Yeah. What have you found that is some of the best marketing strategies for rapid growth?
The number one strategy for rapid growth is to be able to think strategically, to be able to have those big strategic plans and then nest them down into, I like to do 90-day sprints. So when I'm in big planning mode, I did this a lot in special ops. Special ops is on a 5-year planning cycle. We're envisioning things that are 5 years out. None of us can actually do 5 years out. That's ridiculous. You can't be planning actual engagements that far out. Most of us can't. But what can we plan 5 years out? We can plan the direction of our company. We can think where we actually want to be in 5 years. What does that look like? Why is it important? What does that mean for us as a person? What does it mean our company is going to go through? And then start to break it down. And instead of focusing on the next year, 2 years, 3 years, focus on 90 days at a time. When you're focusing on that short of a duration time period and said, in the next 90 days, I'm going to do this. Well, now we're working within compressed time. So there's an interesting thing out there called Parkinson's Law. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, it's where you fit the number of tasks and activities into a certain amount of time. So it's like,
yeah,
I'll let you discuss. I'll let you.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all terrible at it. And until someone says, dude, you're taking a whole lot of you might want to compress time. When you work in compressed time, you're able to get more accomplished. So having a team that's running all those systems and processes that we talked about earlier, freeing the visionary up to be strategic is really the key to all this. When visionaries are able to be strategic, they start thinking of the moon and just going for it and thinking of all these wazoo ideas where us operators are like, oh, dude, again with this, come on, man. Okay, we're on big picture vision again. And let visionaries stay in big picture vision, let them do that. But when we break it down into those cycles, and then we are working in compressed time towards that strategic vision, that's how we make big leaps forward.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. And then you talk about secrets for creating a team culture, leading a dynamic team. Tell us more about that as we wrap it up.
Sure. Yeah. The biggest thing, especially with online businesses, is I wrap it up under an umbrella I call a communication cadence. The fact is, most of us hate meetings, right? I think everyone's out there nodding their head. But let's ask ourselves realistically, why do we hate meetings? Most of us hate meetings because we don't have a purpose to them, that we don't have an agenda that we're working from. They seem listless, aimless. Are we really here for 30 minutes? Did this have to be 30 minutes long or not? When we work with intention and we're creating a cadence of meetings, a cadence of interactions with our employees, with our subordinates, with our higher ups, that's the first step into creating a culture. So with an online team, purely as an example, every week we start off with a team meeting. That is the kickoff. That's where we all come together and start working together. Every day as a COO, I have a 5 to 10 minute meeting with my entire team. A touch point, not long, only as long as it has to be. I've had them as short as 35 seconds before, when I only needed to say, hey, great, have a good day, bye. And then an end of week meeting. And interspersed into that was various meetings with different, like if we had different departments where we needed to have a marketing meeting or a sales meeting or a content strategy meeting. It's this cadence, this predictable, defined way that we're interacting, where we're not letting things be piecemeal, but instead we're putting it on the calendar. Everyone knows what's coming. Everyone has the agenda. That's really the first step, because what does that do? It gives everyone stability. And when you're then working within that stability, you can communicate your vision. You can communicate your ideas for future growth. You can tell stories from what your clients are experiencing to reinforce the fact that what you're doing is important. But it all starts at having a structure and a system for interacting with your team. And then I wrap up every month with a one-to-one meeting with each and every one of my subordinates, everyone that directly answers to me. And here's the critical thing to closing the loop on all this. As visionaries, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, we're often so focused on the information that we're putting downstream. What information are we giving our team? I'd ask you, what conduits are you giving for information to come back up to you from your team members? The one-to-one meeting is all about the team member, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, any troubles they're having. It's not an evaluation meeting from me. It's solely about what they're experiencing in their role. What does that do for any team? It means they feel like someone's listening. They feel supported. They see a glide path to their own growth within the organization. There's a reason I've hired 12 people over the last year and a half. My turnover ratio is exactly 0. People do not leave a team that I hire them onto because they have upward trajectory, they have upward growth, and they have support. And it just builds culture within a team.
Yeah, that's a very insightful conversation, and it's been great. How I know people are interested in following you. How can they do that? I know you're on social media, your website. How can they contact you?
Sure. So the best avenue is through my podcast. It's called the Smooth Operator Podcast. So you can find that on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. My website is www.adamliette. Let me spell that because it's audio, liette.com. You can check out that website, and I'll have some free training up there that you can take advantage of.
Yeah. And for all the listeners out there, Adam's resources will be in the links and show notes. Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast. It was a great conversation, and we look forward to hearing about your future success.
Thank you, Christopher. Have a great day. Talk soon.